Yes, I really do not like subscription services. Subscriptions to music, software, plugins, sample libraries, effects, that sort of thing. And I'm not alone, because I know for a fact that thousands of musicians feel the same way. But I'm going to put on a small pair of horns and play devil's advocate to that in a moment. So anyway, this video is about Musio, which I did subscribe to. I will of course give you a demo. I will look at other subscription services to see if we can do some sort of comparison. I will point you to more information about Musio, and I will also point out some things about Musio which I haven't seen in any of the reviews I have watched so far. That might be interesting. And of course there will be demos. So subscriptions, I do not like the idea of paying eternally for something which I will never own. I know many other musicians feel the same way. You only have to look at the hoo-ha waves created when they said they were going to go entirely subscription-based. That actually cost them a lot of customers who, with that possible threat of a subscription somewhere down the line, they decided they were going to stop using Waves plugins entirely. Having said that, here's my horns. I do appreciate that subscription services can be a benefit to many people, particularly if you don't have a massive budget to spend hundreds or indeed thousands of pounds on, particularly sample libraries, which tend to be far more expensive than plugins and effects, generally. And even if you do have the money, it's still a good way to try the wares of a particular company before you decide to buy. However, companies offering subscription services are not necessarily out and out good guys, because subscription services are actually a very good business model, far better than selling the product. It's brilliant for businesses, but I don't think it's quite so good for the consumer. Now, the other concern, shall we say, that I have about subscription services is that in general they are generally too expensive. In my opinion, of course. Most of the ones I've seen, and the ones we'll be looking at in this video, come in around $10 a month. And you might think, well, that's not too bad. And as a single subscription, it's not. But if you need, for whatever reason, to subscribe to more than one, and I know many people require, need, or want products from more than one company, then the additional subscription costs can soon mount up. If subscription services were, shall we say, more fairly priced, in my opinion, I know manufacturers and possibly other people will not agree with that, but let's say they were around $3, maybe $4 a month, certainly I would be more inclined to subscribe to a few. So let's have a look at Musio, which I did subscribe to, yes, with my own money. Musio is a product and brainchild of Cinesamples. Now, if you are familiar with sample libraries, you are probably familiar with Cinesamples. They are, I guess, up there with companies such as Spitfire and ADO, Heaviosity, East, West, all the usual sample library manufacturers. They produce good sample libraries. The very first sample library I bought from them was Cinebrass, which runs in Contact, and it's a very good brass sample library, which I still use. So Musio has been around for a couple of years, and it's not just a question of Cinesamples porting their Contact instruments over to the Musio format. There are differences which I'll get to in a second, but at the moment I'm making this in October 2024. There are 100 sample libraries which contain over 2,000 instruments. We'll see how other offerings stack up a little bit later in the video. So one of the advantages of these cloud-based sample libraries is that you only download what you need. You don't have to download a 50 or 60 gigabyte sample library if you are only going to use a couple of the articulations. I shall show you how this works in the demo in a second. So this obviously saves massively on hard disk space. Now, most of the instruments are only megabytes in size. Some of the libraries, which have a lot of articulations, are maybe 2 or 3 gigabytes in size. So these do take a little bit longer to download. But if you have a reasonably fast internet connection, the average instrument will download in a matter of seconds. And once it's downloaded, it stays on your hard drive. So if you want to access it again, it is virtually instant. Now, I have to mention, at this point, if you're still with me, there is a 30-day free trial. And if nothing else, I would certainly recommend that you try it. You never know what goodies you might find, and you might discover some sounds that you hadn't thought of using before. Now, the Musio samples run in a dedicated VST called, of course, Musio. So this should work on any DAW which supports VST plugins. It does not require contact. So let's have a look at what it is and what it does, and obviously some of the sounds. Now, this is a demo I created earlier, and my intention was to highlight some of the sample libraries which I thought were really interesting. So I made a shortlist, and it turned out to be rather long. So in the end, I have just selected at random some of the sounds from the sample library. So I hope it gives you a good idea of the content. Obviously, it majors on orchestral samples, so I have not gone into massive detail about those in this video because there are lots of other videos already covering that, including Musio themselves, who have their own YouTube channel. So this is Musio. This is the Musio plugin, and there's a couple of tabs here which let you sort through or scroll through the sample libraries. And you can see there are a lot. And if you click on the Explore tab, then you get a number of recent additions. So just in case you miss any. Now let's just select one, go back to the tab. Let's select the flute, and to load it, or to load any of the instruments, you can see there's a lot of instruments and a lot of articulations, so you can just load the one or the ones that you want. But many of these have a collection of articulations in them, which you can select by key switch. Yes, this loaded instantly because I have downloaded it and played with it before. It sounds like this. It's an absolutely lovely sound. So when you select an instrument, it appears in the rack here. You can solo and mute it, and I think you can have about 16 instruments in the rack. Now I have everything in the rack selected to the same MIDI channel 1. I use one instance of Musio per track, so essentially I just want one instrument on each track, or a combination of instruments. If I had a couple or 2 or 3 or 4 or more instruments in the rack here, they would all play when I play the keyboard. There is an instrument tab. All the instrument tabs are fairly similar. There's usually dynamics and expression controls here. They vary slightly depending on the instrument, and there's a small effects section down here. Now, one of the interesting things is that this particular instrument has a lot of built-in articulations, and you can create your own key switches by dragging the articulations from the list here onto the keys. Just like that. So that is Musio in a nutshell. I will put links to more extensive videos about it in the description. But now let's have a look at some of the more exciting and interesting instruments. Go back to the catalogue, click the back button, and there we are. So you can see a lot of them obviously are orchestral type instruments, but there's a lot of other non-traditional orchestral instruments. So this is one of the libraries I like. This is a choir library. So you can see that this particular instrument offers chords and octaves, and then you have individual singers. Let's try the octaves. Now that loaded pretty quickly. I still have the flutes loaded, so let's just solo the choir. Nice. Let's have a look at the instrument. So you can see that these are currently staccato articulations, but we can change to sustain either from the instrument interface or by pressing a key switch. I really like choir sounds. Let's have a look at something else. So let's have a look at Cinesamples. Epic percussion. So you can see there's a lot of different ensemble options, and one of the things which appears on most instruments but not all instruments is a little preview button. Wow, okay. I like that one. Oh, that's good. Okay, let's load one of these. We can actually load a couple. Right, now you can see every time I select an instrument to load, it puts a new instance in the rack. So let's sort out the solos and mutes here. So I have muted the flute and the voices. So let's see what this does. So let's just solo this one. Oh, that's a nice little rumble. I could play with this all day. Right, let's move on. Let's try this other one. Oh, that's interesting. And of course, we can play them both together. So, using this the rack system, you can build up your own instruments, percussion instruments, or any other combination of instruments, super orchestral instruments, whatever you like. And just for the sake of it, and just because we can, let's just mute the other two. And you probably wouldn't want to do this in real life, but let's have a go. Well, who would have thought it? Let's have a look at something else. I'm just going to clear the rack. Now, as we like big drums, well, who doesn't like big drums? This is an impact designer. So again, there are a lot of instruments to choose from. Let's go for the designed impacts. Yes, I've been playing with this as well. I'd load it instantly. Whoa. Oh, some super sounds here. So this is the instrument interface. You can see it's similar to the others, but we have a few more controls with this one. There's expression, and you can add, there's a filter control, distortion, reverb. So a few controls to let you tailor the sound to your preference. So this is another of my favourite libraries, Men of the North, and I use this in a recent piece which is on the channel. I shall put a link to it in the description. Song of the Ice Warriors, and this has a lot of articulations. So let's try a couple of these. And let's just try one at a time. I still have the Impact Designer on. So this is the other one. That's nice. Sounds like a barbershop quartet, but of course we can play them both together. I love stuff like that. Let's try another one. Going to get rid of these. Go back to the catalogue. Now, one thing which may interest some potential users, it has some famous drum machine sample libraries, the Lindrum and some of the Roland TR drums. Now, I have to say I haven't really looked at these. I must confess I am not a massive fan of the Roland TR sound. What can I say? I know it's sacrilege, the foundation of our modern music as it is today. That's just me. But they have sample libraries here, so if you are interested in that, you have samples of them here. They also have some samples from vintage synthesizers or behind Prophet, the Juno. These are samples. It's a sample library. After also, they only have a few sounds from them. So again, some people might find this useful. I sort of think they're a bit of a filler, quite honestly. I think if you want some synth sounds, you're going to have some synths from the Arturia V collection, from Cherry Audio, from GeForce, proper, shall we say, proper emulations. But, you know, they're here if you want to play with them. But there are some really interesting, can we say, world instruments from Iceland, from Ireland, Scotland, South Africa. Let's have a look at these. So these are some of the instruments from the Iceland library, and you will notice that there is a preview button. So let's load up this. I've been playing with this as well. Yes, that is what this sounds like. I am not playing out of tune. Do they have a different tuning scale in Iceland? I don't know. Anyway, that's one of the instruments. Let's try another one at random. See what happens here. That's an interesting sound. Reminds me of a didgeridoo. I did check to see if there was a didgeridoo in the collection, but not at the moment. Well, that was certainly something different. Let's have a quick look at Scotland. Let's try the pipes. Whoops, I don't want Paul McCartney coming after me. That's a nice I would have thought it would have been deeper than that. That's the lowest note. Let's see what the instrument has to say. So that's legato. With legato, you can only play one note at a time, of course, because legato is the smooth moving from one note to another. So let's see. That was a little ornament. That's quite nice. With sustain, you can actually play more than one note at a time. I don't know why you would want to with the bagpipes, but you can. Anyway, that's a little bit more musical than the Icelandic stuff, in my humble opinion. Apologies if anyone from Iceland is watching this and enjoying the Icelandic instruments. So there's the dulcitone. So, all sorts of different, I guess, traditional Scottish instruments. Let's get back to the catalogue. So this is the penultimate one which we look at. Again, it's a bit different to the normal orchestral instrument. It is, I think, created with a violin, but they are various atonal sounds. Ideal for Halloween, I would have thought. Or horror movies, or scary movies, or scary music. Oh, that's nice. So they're not all scary atonal sounds, but that's an interesting library. And let's have a look at one final library. So this is orchestral chords, and it does on the inside what it says it does on the outside. It plays orchestral chords, and there is a whole range of different types of chord. I should just play a few previews because they're easier to give you a better idea of what sounds you can get rather than going through the process of loading them all and playing them. So I won't go through them all. You get the idea. Some instant orchestral sounds you can get just by playing one key. The original demo video was much longer than that. I've tried to cut it down to a manageable size. If you want more information, do the 30-day free trial. Nothing lost. Now, one of the things you may have noticed is that the instrument interface is pretty simple and fairly basic. At the moment, as far as I can tell anyway, there are no mic positions. Now, this might not affect a lot of people or not bother a lot of people, but I know many dedicated orchestrators do like to tweak the mic positions. This can make the difference between giving the sound a very close and intimate feel to a more spacious feel. And although many instruments have many articulations, they don't have every articulation. One of the things I couldn't find in the collection was flotando strings, which are brilliant for background sounds. So this collection has not been ported directly over from the Contact collection. And the Contact collection, I think, in my limited experience of Cinesamples Contact libraries, is more comprehensive than what we are getting in Musio. Just something to be aware of. So let's have a look at the prices. Now, the pricing system for Musio has changed quite a bit since it was initially launched. There are currently two Musio plans. One is a subscription, which is $10 a month or $100 a year. The other one is $200, and this gives you a perpetual license, but only for the current set of instruments. Now, the website does say you will be able to upgrade on a yearly basis to get any new additions, but it doesn't say how much that will cost. At least I couldn't find that. Now, it isn't too long ago that this cost, I think it was $400, so it seems to have halved in price, and I think if we go back even further, it was perhaps a little bit more. So maybe they are still finding their feet and trying to find the best price performance ratio for them and their customers. I went with the 1 year subscription. Now, I have to add, just so you are aware, I'm in the UK, and when I paid for this, they added VAT to it. Now, I can only hope that they pass this on to His Majesty's Revenue Service, because our current government is so hard up, it is taking to robbing pensioners. No politics. Sorry. But it's true. I don't understand the tax situation anywhere else in the world, so your mileage, of course, may vary, and probably will. Now, one of the major competitors that I'm aware of, there may well be more, but I don't go diving looking for subscription services for this sort of thing. But one of the major competitors, I think, is going to be East West. Now, East West has their own sample player. They don't use Contact. I do not have any East West libraries at all. Now, the East West subscription is twice that of Musio, but you do seem to get a lot more instruments. Over 42,000 according to East West, compared to over 2,000 for Musio. Here's the pricing system for Roland Cloud. You can subscribe for as little as $3 a month, but I don't think you really get a lot for that. For the equivalent price, for $10, you can activate any two legendary instruments. Now, these are just obviously Roland software versions of their legendary instruments. Whether you think this is a good deal or not, well, that's up to you. But you can only access two legendary instruments. You need to pay twice as much, $20 a month, if you want to access all the instruments. Native Instruments also has a subscription service. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know I'm a massive Native Instruments fan. Well, of the software, perhaps not so much of the company, but I do love the software. So they have 3 subscription options under their 360 plan. Now, for the equivalent price, or I actually think it works out a little bit more expensive, the Essential plan, you get a few instruments and effects. Now, I personally don't think this is a particularly good deal, but you need to look at your budget and your requirements, and perhaps it will suit you. They suggest that the most popular plan is almost twice as much. Again, you don't get everything in the Native Instruments catalogue, and you don't even get the full version of Contact. So again, I have to say, I think this is really selling the customers short. I would not be inclined to subscribe to this. Nor, I have to say, would I be inclined to subscribe to the Pro version, which is about 4 times the cost. It's about the equivalent of the upgrade price to Komplete 15. So if you have Komplete 14 or 13 or 12, then for the same amount of money you can buy all the upgrades that you need. And again, I don't know that you get everything in the Native Instruments catalogue with this subscription. You do get Contact 8 with this, but I'm not totally sure that you would get all the instruments that you get in the complete collection. Somebody would have to do a item by item comparison in order to work that out. Something perhaps you may want to do if you're thinking of spending 450 quid a year on this subscription. Now, there may well be other subscription options out there. If you know of one which is even better value than any of these, please let us all know in the comments. Now, one more thing about Musio, which you definitely need to know. If you cancel your subscription or only subscribe for a certain length of time, then when you stop, none of the instruments will load into your existing or old projects. So, as I said at the beginning, you stop paying and you lose complete and total access to everything that you've been paying for. The system does retain the data, however, so if you resubscribe again, then all your instruments will come flooding back. So to circumvent that possibility, a good idea is to bounce all the Musio tracks to audio. I'm sure you've already thought of that. So I thought it would be interesting to produce just a short cue using some of the sounds in the Musio library. So I put this together. It's a 15-second cue. I put this together in a very, very short space of time. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, so it may be a little rough around the edges, but I had fun doing it. And I will say I took some inspiration from orchestration recipes, which I reviewed a few weeks ago. Link in the description, of course, if you want to check that out. So I hope you found this useful, interesting. If you do enjoy subscription services, do let me know what you subscribe to and why you think they are better than paying for anything outright. If you have any questions, as long as my subscription is still running, I will do my best to answer them. Leave them in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again in the next video and play you out with this really short Musio cue.